Hello everybody and welcome to my review of volume number 6 of Kugane Maruyama's light novel series, Overlord. This one released in English by Yen On. If you want to pick up yourself a copy, which I do highly recommend, you can do so using links in the description to either Amazon.com or the Book Depository. Those are affiliate links and they help to help the channel, so I appreciate you using them. Volume number 6 is, of course, the direct continuation of the storyline that began in volume number 5, which is the Men of the Kingdom. In volume number 5, we see the story expanding. We see the denizens of Nazarick separate from Ainz. In particular, we spend a great deal of time with the butler of Nazarick, Sebas. Now, Sebas has set himself up with Solution in the capital of the kingdom, and they are essentially making connections, making deals, scoping out what resources are available. Pretty much they're investigating the city itself while Ainz is trying to continue to grow his hero persona. Now, in volume number 5, we saw a whole bunch of different storylines kind of happening and being set up all at once. Of course, we had the storyline with Sebas in the capital doing his reconnaissance. In so doing, he becomes involved with a underworld organization known as the Eight Fingers, and he rescues a girl named Suare. Now, at the same time, we have the princess of the realm. It's Renner, I think is how you pronounce it, or Renee. I'm not sure how they do that. I could watch this season of the anime. I'd probably be able to figure it out. Anyway, she and the Adamantite adventurers, the Blue Roses, as well as her servant and personal guard, Climb, are all kind of plotting to take out the Eight Fingers organization. It's very much an organized crime syndicate which has weaseled its way into the underworld of the kingdom. They've bought off nobles, they've bought off different types of officials, and so the princess wants to rout this whole thing out of their society. And so we have her machinations going on. We also, of course, have the Eight Fingers themselves that are plotting to expand their power base and to retain their control. So we have a couple of different moving pieces that are all introduced in volume number 5, and all of them are kind of in one way or another brought into either contact or into conflict with one another. In the case of Sebas, he comes into contact with Climb because of a raid on a Eight Fingers brothel. And of course, because Sebas interferes with this organization, the Eight Fingers are now targeting Sebas. So we have all of these sort of things becoming connected, and volume number 6 is the culmination of all of these different pieces that have been moved around. We have the assault on the Eight Fingers. We have the Eight Fingers going after Sebas and targeting him. We start to see a fairly grand scheme of the Tomb of Nazarick being implemented. If volume number 5 was an amazing world-building volume, volume number 6 is shaking up the status quo. And to me, this is almost very much it sort of solves, I won't say solves, but it kind of puts an end to all of those different pieces. It is a huge setup for a multitude of stories that can come down the line, and it really positions Nazarick as an active party in this world as opposed to the silent observer role that it has occupied for the earlier volumes. So this volume feels in a lot of ways like a ending as well as a brand new direction, a new movement forward. And there are all sorts of little character things throughout this book that are absolutely phenomenal. There's little things that characters do that seem somewhat inconsequential, but then when you start thinking about it in the larger scale, you're like, oh, that's really interesting. Like, there's a scene with Albedo. I don't want to ruin it, but when, I mean, I think it's the only real scene with her. But when you see it and you see sort of how it ends, gives you a very different perspective on her as a character. Sebas being asked to explain his actions and why he got directly involved with the Eight Fingers and why he saved this girl reveals a great deal about his character and sort of the, you know, inner conflicts that he is experiencing. And then, of course, we have Demiurge in this one and his tactical mind. And we just see so many plots play out in this book. If volume 5 was, you didn't think there was enough action in volume 5. And I mean, let's face it, there was at least one big battle in volume number 5. There weren't a lot of them, but there was one good sort of centerpiece battle. If there weren't enough of those for you in volume number 5, volume number 6 is here to scratch that itch. This book has far more battle aspects to it. Like, I would probably say about 70% of this book is fighting. And it is to the credit of the book that those battles are still advancing the story and still advancing the characters and giving us insights into the characters. So it isn't like it's just like, oh, they're fighting, woohoo, more fighting, more fighting, more fighting. Nothing's happening other than fighting. The fighting is interesting. What the fighting reveals about the characters is interesting. If in volume number 4, of course, we had sort of the battle between Nazarick and the Lizardmen. And even then, like, it didn't feel like Nazarick was really going all at it. You know, like, they basically threw one guardian out there and then a bunch of, like, skeletons have at it. This one, it's like a far larger mobilization of the forces of Nazarick, which is wild. Like, I mean, it's, if you're buying into this whole thing and you're totally on side with a anti-hero, then I think you would really love this one, because again, it is showing us just like some element of Nazarick and what kind of power it is able to wield in this world. And just like what they do in this city, oh, I mean, it just starts to make you imagine that Nazarick really could take over the world if they wanted to. And they could probably do it in like a full-on offensive if they wanted, but it makes this series so cool that they're not doing that. You know, that you see plans starting to come to fruition. Like I said, you start seeing Nazarick stopping in that role of that Ainz has taken from the beginning, which was, let's be cautious, let's just kind of watch from the shadows. I'm going to sort of pretend to be a hero, but you know, you guys keep it low on the down low. We start seeing that change. We start seeing Nazarick being an active force in this world. And even just little conversations that are had hint at huge plans and directions that this series is going to go that have me, well, I mean, I am really biased. I love this series, and for good reason as far as I'm concerned. You know, even the side characters in this, even the side human characters in this are interesting. You know, Brian in particular, I really like his character. Climb, you know what? Climb is not a bad character. I can see where some people would write him off as being sort of the wishy-washy, wimpy kid that just keeps on trying so hard. But I like him. I like him as a foil for like a more grizzled sort of character like Brian. Like, seeing those two work together is really cool to me. I like that. You know, the princess. Man, I said in last one, I was like, oh, the princess. I think there's a lot more to her than meets the eye. And whoo boy, was I kind of right and not right all at the same time. Like, wow, there's, yeah, well, I'm not going to spoil that, but But yeah, if you kind of got those inklings in volume number 5 that you were like, this princess, there's something else going on there. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. There, yeah. And it's so cool. Like I just, like I said, it's this book. I mean, it is such a good book in terms of all of these different factions and their machinations and how they're double playing each other and how they do little things to try and, screw over other people. Like how the princess, even though it's dangerous, she takes her youngest brother and has him play a prominent role so that it undermines the normal people's faith in his older brother who would be supposedly next for the throne. Like even just those little kind of political moves are cool to me. I mean, again, it's that whole world building, right? It's showing that we have characters that are alive and active and thinking for themselves. They're not just like these little cookie cutters that just do the most predictable and straight ahead kind of thing. And, of course, it's the same with Nazarick as well. In this book, I'd say probably more than any of the others, I would say we have the definite confirmation that Ainz has all but left behind his humanity. At this point, for him, people aren't even something that he is anymore. And his people, the Tomb of Nazarick's denizens, are his sole focus and concern. And if it means that thousands of humans die in the benefit of Nazarick, so be it. About the only thing that Ainz retains of his humanity at this point is just this: he isn't needlessly cruel. And, depending on how you sit on the fence with that might bother you, because certainly at this point, Ainz isn't a hero per se. I mean, even if he's doing something that from a human perspective is right, it's usually that it's because it serves another purpose that he figures benefits the Tomb of Nazarick. So in this book, we have all of this character building stuff happening. We have it with Ainz, we have it with Sebas, we have it with Demiurge, we have it with Princess Renner, we have it with Climb, with Brine, and all of these secondary characters. We have all of this development in their character, and yet it's all being done to the backdrop of this massive, massive battle that rages for the majority of the book. I would say probably the only thing in this volume that I kind of wasn't as into was the character of Evil Eye. And she's one of the Blue Roses, the Adamantite warriors, like adventurers. I don't want to say I disliked it, but her storyline in this and how she starts feeling for Ainz in his hero persona, it to me that was a little played up. I kind of thought I kind of thought that was something we didn't really need as much of. I mean, again, I don't like spoiling things, and it's not really a huge spoiler, but I think to me, like the way it's written, it takes more of the very stereotypical doe-eyed anime girl, I'm in love with this incredible man type of thing, as opposed to when you have the rest of the book being so well thought out and mature. I kind of was like, we don't really need that. There would be lots of ways to write her sort of becoming interested in Ainz in a way that wasn't sort of stupid and girly-ish and a little over the top. Yeah, I think that's probably the only thing that I sort of have a somewhat minor quibble with. And even then, like, I'm not saying that I don't like Evil Eye as a character. In fact, there are a lot of questions about her character that I'm like sitting there going, if we didn't focus so much on just her obsession with Ainz, she would be a really interesting character, like really interesting. And given who she is and what she's capable of and the hints of her history. Man, like, if they can figure out a way to get her to join on the side of Nazarick, that could be pretty awesome. Like, yeah, I mean, I think that's the thing about this series that I love, is that there's just so many places for it to go. And because we've already, I mean, this is only volume 6. Like, let's be honest, like 6 books in light novel series is not a lot when you have a lot of series that are pushing double digits, and beyond. Like, we've got series that have over 20 volumes. So having 6 books is not a lot. And yet in those 6 books, we have seen Nazarick go from, this very cautious kind of let's hold back and see and hide kind of thing to what happens in this book. We have seen Ainz go from the confused gamer who finds himself in a world that's very game-like to the Overlord that we are definitely seeing the elements of in this book. We've seen, like, this series, we've seen them go to, like, in book 4, I mean, the majority of the book didn't even involve anybody from Nazarick. In fact, it was told from the point of view of the Lizardmen, and yet it still worked. Volume 5, Ainz was in it for like a little interlude chapter, and other than that, he wasn't in it at all. The main character was absent, and yet the book still worked as an Overlord novel. And now we have this book, which, as I said, it sets up so many things that this series could just go to any place. And I think that, at this point, even though Ainz is the main character, I really do think we're meant to become invested in the other characters of Nazarick. I mean, at this point, there's been so much focus on those characters. And like I said, with Sebas, his character got so much development over these 2 books. I'm totally happy at this point reading Overlord novels where the main character is Sebas and Ainz sits in the background, or even Shaltir or Demiurge or any of the other of them. Like, all of them, I'm very happy to read an Overlord novel where they're the main character and Ainz is taking a back seat. So those are my thoughts on volume number 6 of Overlord. Another great entry in that series. That series has yet to let me down. Absolutely love Overlord. Very much looking forward to the next volume and sort of seeing where the series goes from the events of this book. But, since we're on sort of the whole dark fantasy type thing, my next review is going to be on volume number 4 of Goblin Slayer. Again, another sort of dark fantasy type light novel series that has been surprisingly decent so far. Although this one, if we kind of take a look at the front images, I'm not too sure how serious this volume is gonna be, but I guess we'll see. If you're brand new to the channel and you love light novels, you should consider subscribing. I do 2 to 3 reviews a week, as well as a weekly countdown of the top 10 best-selling light novels in Japan. Thank you so much for joining me in this video, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Till then, bye-bye for now.